Picture this for a second. You're standing on a concrete dock in the middle of a bustling, just totally overheated city.
Oh, yeah. The worst kind of summer day.
Exactly. Traffic is blaring in the distance, your phone is buzzing in your pocket with like 3 new urgent emails, and your brain just feels like a web browser with 50 tabs open, right? And you're playing audio from a tab you can't even locate.
We've all been there. It's exhausting.
It really is.
Hmm.
But now imagine stepping off that concrete and putting your feet onto a fiberglass hull. The moment you push off and leave solid ground, the world instantly changes. The frantic mechanical noise of the city, it just fades away entirely.
Like a switch flips.
Yeah. Suddenly, all you can hear is the rhythmic, gentle lap of water against the boat, and then right above you, the clean, crisp snap of a sail catching the breeze.
It is a profound sensory shift. I mean, you are crossing a literal physical boundary from this built hyper-anxious environment into something ancient and, well, elemental. The rules of the land simply no longer apply.
That sensory shift is exactly the phenomenon we are pulling apart today. Our source material is a really fascinating new piece titled, Why Learning to Sail is the Best Thing You Can Do for Your Soul. It was written by Anita L. Hummel, and it was published today, actually, June 3, 2026, on the Travel and Expat Living blog, A Bus on a Dusty Road.
Yeah, and what she does here is brilliant. The author takes something society usually categorizes as, just a weekend recreation or a niche sport for the wealthy and completely reframes it. She builds a very compelling case that this ancient mode of transportation might actually be a psychological necessity for the modern age.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the author starts by diagnosing a problem that I think, honestly, every single one of us feels in our bones right now.
The digital burnout.
Exactly. We're suffering from this frantic, crushing obligation to stay connected. We're walking around with screens constantly demanding our attention. Our minds are cluttered with this infinite scroll of notifications. We're hyper-connected to our tech, but like entirely disconnected from our actual physical bodies.
And the physical world around us, too. And look at the typical solutions we try to apply to this exhaustion. They almost all rely on a finite and, frankly, flawed resource, which is willpower.
Right. We tell ourselves, I'm just going to put the phone in another room.
Yeah. Or you activate Do Not Disturb and just hope you have the discipline to ignore that little black mirror sitting right there on your desk. But on land, you're fighting a losing battle. You're going up against devices and algorithms that are engineered by billionaires to hack your dopamine loops.
They want to capture your attention. It's rigged.
Exactly. It's totally rigged.
So if willpower fails us on land because the game is rigged against us, how does stepping onto a boat physically bypass that trap?
Well, by entirely removing the element of choice. Disconnecting on a sailboat isn't a decision you have to agonize over. It is an environmental mandate.
An environmental mandate. I like that.
Yeah, because you are thrust into a situation where you're actively collaborating with the elements. You simply cannot mindlessly scroll through a social feed when your immediate physical safety, your balance, and your forward progress all rely on your full, undivided attention.
You literally need both hands.
Right. You force a hard reset on your attention span because your hands are tied up with the mechanics of survival.
It makes me think about how we try to use meditation apps on land. You sit there on a cushion, you close your eyes, and you try to force your brain to ignore the phone that's buzzing 2 feet away.
Which is incredibly hard.
It's nearly impossible.
Yeah.
But on a sailboat, you aren't fighting the urge to look at a screen because your brain is completely saturated with analog data. You're constantly scanning the horizon for other vessels. You're watching these little pieces of yarn called telltales tied to the sail.
Right, the telltales.
Yeah, if they're streaming straight back, you have perfect airflow.
Yeah.
But if they're fluttering wildly, you're losing power and you have to adjust. You're reading tiny ripples on the water's surface to predict where the next gust of wind will hit.
What's fascinating here is what psychologists call active mindfulness. This isn't the passive relaxation of lying on a beach towel. You are forced into an acute, hyper-focused awareness of your physical reality.
Because you have to be.
Yes. Human cognitive bandwidth is strictly limited because your brain is actively processing the hum of the rigging and the exact shade of the water-like blue versus green indicating a depth change and the tension of a rope in your bare hand. The anxiety of that unread inbox back at the office completely evaporates.
Wow.
Your brain simply does not possess the excess processing power to worry about a digital spreadsheet when you're trying to read the subtle shift of wind direction against your cheek.
You're powered by nothing but the atmosphere itself. And because you're forced into this hyper-focused state, a profound shift starts to happen in your body, right? It changes your brain chemistry. The source brings up this concept coined by marine biologist Wallace J. Nichols called the blue mind.
Yes, the blue mind. It's
I
fascinating.
know it means the mildly meditative state our brains enter near water, but I really want to understand the mechanics here. Why does looking at an ocean do something to my brain that looking at a really nice skyscraper doesn't?
Well, it really comes down to evolutionary biology. Early humans associated vast, calm bodies of water with survival. An unbroken ocean or a large lake meant access to hydration, to food sources, and crucially, a clear, flat line of sight to spot predators from miles away.
Oh, so it's like an ancient safety signal.
Precisely. When you look at an unbroken horizon on the water today, your nervous system subconsciously signals to your brain, you are safe. You have a clear vantage point. You do not need to be in fight or flight mode.
That makes so much sense.
And that evolutionary trigger actively reduces stress hormones like cortisol. It physically lowers your heart rate. And beyond the visual simplicity, which, lowers your cognitive load by removing the processing of billboards and traffic lights, there is an auditory component too.
Right, the sound of the water.
Yeah, the repetitive rhythmic sounds of the water lapping against the hull act as natural auditory white noise. It pacifies that frantic internal monologue that modern city living constantly triggers.
It's nature's original noise-canceling technology. But beyond the biological drop in cortisol, there's a massive philosophical shift that the author highlights. It has to do with our modern obsession with control. I mean, think about how much mental energy you spend every single day trying to control the uncontrollables.
Oh, it's exhausting.
We micromanage our schedules, we try to script our conversations, we expect instant, perfectly tailored results from every click of a button.
Modern conveniences have conditioned us to believe that if we just exert enough effort or, organize our digital tools perfectly, we can completely command our environment. We expect the world to bend to our preferences.
But the ocean absolutely shatters that illusion, right? You cannot command the wind to blow harder just because you have a dinner reservation to get to.
No, you certainly cannot.
You can't force a storm to clear up, and you definitely cannot tell a massive waves to flatten out so you can have a smoother ride.
Which forces a real psychological reckoning. The author touches on this beautifully. On the water, you are faced with a stark reality. You cannot control the elements, but you can always adjust your sails.
I feel like we hear that phrase a lot as like a motivational cliche, but what is the actual psychological weight of experiencing that on a boat?
It is the practice of constructive surrender. When the wind dies entirely, you don't throw a tantrum, because a tantrum won't make the wind blow.
Right. The ocean doesn't care if you're mad.
Exactly. You simply practice patience. You accept reality exactly as it presents itself, not as you wish it to be. And on the flip side, if the wind suddenly gets aggressive, you don't panic. You reef the sails, which means systematically reducing their surface area so they catch less wind, and you dig in. Practicing this acceptance physically on the water builds a quiet, profound resilience.
So you basically train your brain to stop fighting the weather.
Yes. And that translates back to land. When you return to the office, the everyday storms of life, a delayed flight, a canceled meeting, a sudden crisis, they don't derail you as easily. You've conditioned your nervous system to respond to unpredictable elements with adaptation rather than panic. You realize the anxiety doesn't come from the unpredictable event itself.
It comes from trying to control it.
Yes, the anxiety comes from your futile attempt to control it.
That makes so much sense. But adjusting to these elements isn't just a mental exercise in letting go. It requires an incredibly active engagement of your intellect. The author describes sailing as a masterclass in lifelong learning. But here's where it gets really interesting. I want to stop and look at the actual physics here, because this is where my brain always gets stuck. How can a boat sail into the wind? That defies basic logic. If the wind is blowing directly at my face, shouldn't it just push the boat backward?
It is entirely counterintuitive, yeah, until you understand aerodynamics. A sail is not a parachute designed to just catch wind and be pushed. When a sail is pulled tight, it forms a curve. It acts exactly like an airplane wing, but standing vertically.
Okay.
As wind travels across the curved surface of the sail, the air on the outside has to travel faster to keep up with the air on the inside, which creates a difference in pressure. This creates a vacuum, or lift, that literally pulls the sail forward.
Wait, so if the wind is pulling the sail sideways and forward, why doesn't the boat just tip over and slide completely sideways across the water?
Because of what is happening under the water. Every sailboat has a keel or a centerboard. It's a heavy, flat fin extending straight down from the bottom of the hull. While the wind is trying to pull the sail sideways, The keel is gripping the water, resisting that sideways motion.
Okay, so think of pinching a wet watermelon seed between your thumb and forefinger. Because the seed is squeezed from both sides, your thumb pushing one way, your finger pushing the other, it shoots forward to escape the pressure, right?
Exactly.
So the wind is pushing the sail one way, the heavy keel is pushing back under the water, and the boat just shoots forward to escape that opposing pressure.
That is a brilliant analogy. The boat is the watermelon seeds squeezing out from the pressure of the wind and the water. And to harness that pressure, you have to master what sailors call points of sail. You have to learn the geometry of positioning your boat relative to the wind direction. You have to learn the difference between running dead downwind with the wind at your back, reaching across the wind, or tacking close hauled, where you're zigzagging in a forward trajectory against the wind.
And while your brain is processing all of this physics, the geometry of the wind, and meteorology like reading cloud formations to anticipate pressure systems, you're also learning these very practical tactile skills. Knots, for instance. The author mentions this isn't just Boy Scout stuff, it's vital safety mechanics.
Absolutely vital. You learn a completely new mechanical language. You learn exactly why you use a bowline knot, which creates a fixed loop that will never slip or jam no matter how much tension is put on it, versus a cleat hitch to secure the boat to the dock, or a clove hitch to temporarily hang a fender over the side.
Because if you get it wrong,
Tying the wrong knot can result in a sail tearing away or a boat drifting off entirely.
so your brain is basically on overdrive. But what about the body? The source calls sailing a stealth workout, which I absolutely love. It's a functional fitness routine disguised as a grand adventure.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the physical demands are substantial, but they bypass the mental dread of going to a gym because your focus is entirely on the external task, not the internal exertion. You aren't staring at a mirror counting to 10. Just standing on a shifting deck requires constant, tiny micro adjustments from your core, your quads, and the stabilizing muscles in your ankles just to remain upright.
And then there's the upper body strength, right?
Oh, indeed. Hauling the sheets, which is the sailing term for the ropes that control the angle of the sails, requires significant pulling power. Raising the heavy mainsail and grinding the winches builds incredible functional strength in your back, your shoulders, and your chest. And when you have to perform a quick tack, moving rapidly from one side of the boat to the other while dodging the swinging boom to balance the weight, you are deeply engaging your agility and your cardiovascular system.
And because you aren't tracking reps on a smartwatch, you actually work harder and longer without realizing it. And the psychological reward is immediate, isn't it? Every time you execute a perfect tack, or you successfully tie that bowline knot in a high-pressure moment while the wind is howling, you receive a tangible, undeniable reminder of your own capability. It is physical proof that you can handle complex, difficult things.
Yeah, and that mastery physically unlocks access to a hidden world. The environment you gain entry to is a massive part of why this is considered food for the soul.
Let's talk about that hidden world, because the sights and experiences reserved for boaters sound almost mystical. Just imagine waking up at anchor in this secluded, mist-covered cove. The water is a perfect mirror reflecting the pine trees on the shore.
It's breathtaking.
You are miles away from the nearest highway, holding a hot cup of coffee in absolute, undisturbed solitude before the rest of the world has even opened its eyes.
The perspective shift is also deeply humbling. When you sail out a few miles and look back at the shoreline, the world you usually inhabit looks drastically different. Massive coastal cities, towering seaside cliffs, traffic jams on the coastal highway, they all look remarkably small and insignificant when viewed from the vast, indifferent expanse of the ocean. It shrinks your daily problems down to their proper size.
And we have to mention the wildlife encounters. Seeing marine life from a crowded, noisy, motorized tour boat is one thing. You're essentially a loud, smelly intruder. But doing it from a silent sailboat is a totally different ballgame. The author points out that dolphins actually love to play in the bow wave of a sailboat.
Yes, they do.
They'll dart back and forth right onto the clear surface of the water, and because there's no loud diesel engine grinding away to scare them off, they just hang out with you.
You enter their environment on their terms. You are moving via the same natural currents and winds that they are, which allows for a level of quiet, respectful integration into nature that combustion engines simply obliterate.
Okay, this all sounds absolutely magical. The mindfulness, the stealth workout, the dolphins. But I'm going to be honest. When I hear terms like yacht club, marine navigation, and hauling sheets, my brain immediately goes to dollar signs and caviar. Isn't this just a highly inaccessible playground for billionaires with luxury yachts?
That is the most common barrier to entry for the general public, but it is a complete misconception. The global sailing community is surprisingly down to earth, and the author provides a highly practical guide to breaking in without emptying your bank account. The cardinal rule is do not start on a 40-foot ocean cruiser. You shouldn't even want to.
Wait, why not? If someone invited me on a 40-foot yacht, I'd definitely say yes.
Sure, for a party, but on a boat that large, everything is mechanized, it's heavy, and it's very forgiving of small errors. You don't truly feel the wind. The way to actually learn the mechanics is to start incredibly small. The author recommends learning on a small dinghy, something called a laser or an optimist.
What exactly is a laser?
Imagine a boat barely bigger than a surfboard, sitting inches above the water with a single sail. It holds one person. Because it is so small and light, it gives you instant, unforgiving physical feedback. If you pull the sail too tight or move the steering tiller the wrong way, the boat tilts aggressively and you might immediately get wet.
Trial by fire. Or water, I guess.
Exactly. You learn exactly how the wind and water interact through direct physical consequence. It builds muscle memory much faster than a large yacht.
So you don't need to buy a massive boat to learn. You just take a class on a tiny, affordable dinghy.
Exactly. You look for accredited, relatively inexpensive weekend courses from organizations like U.S. Sailing, the American Sailing Association, or the Royal Yachting Association. They provide the boats and the instructors.
But what about the social aspect? The source mentioned yacht clubs, which again sounds like you need an ascot and a trust fund to get past the front gate.
The term yacht club is honestly misleading. While some are elite, the vast majority of local community sailing clubs are essentially just groups of sailing nerds who desperately need extra hands. They host casual weeknight races, often called beer can regattas, and they're actively looking for beginners. You don't need years of experience. You can literally join a crew as what they affectionately call rail meet.
Rail meet, that paints a vivid picture.
It just means you're acting as human ballast. Your job is simply to sit on the high side of the boat, dangling your legs over the edge, to help use your body weight to balance the boat against the force of the wind pushing it over. It requires zero technical skill initially, but it is a fantastic way to get out on the water for free.
That's amazing.
You learn by observing, you eventually help pull a line here and there, and you meet passionate, experienced mentors who genuinely want to share their knowledge with newcomers.
And the author mentions that once you have the basics down, you don't even need to buy a boat then either. You can simply rent small day sailors by the hour or join boat sharing clubs. It's like a gym membership, but instead of access to treadmills, you get access to a fleet of boats without any of the crippling maintenance, storage, or insurance burdens of owning one yourself.
This raises an important question for the listener. If the financial barrier to entry is actually quite low, and the mental and physical benefits are so immensely high, what is stopping you from taking that first step to reclaim your focus?
That is the real challenge, isn't it? Stepping out of our comfortable climate-controlled boxes. So what does this all mean? When we distill all of this down, sailing is ultimately this beautiful ancient partnership between human ingenuity and the raw, untamed forces of nature. It offers you a brilliant disguise for a full-body workout, a literal reset button for your fried dopamine-addicted nervous system, and it teaches you profound life lessons about letting go of the illusion of control and constructively surrendering to reality.
There is a broader context here that is worth leaving you with. We live in a modern world that is racing at breakneck speed toward artificial intelligence, toward total automation, toward a frictionless existence where we have immediate voice-activated command over every single aspect of our environments. In a society so obsessed with digital control, perhaps intentionally choosing a hobby where you are completely undeniably subservient to the ancient analog whims of the wind and the tide, perhaps that is the ultimate act of modern rebellion.
A rebellion of the soul, escaping the algorithm to go sit in the wind. I absolutely love that. And for you, the listener, if you want to keep fueling that rebellion, if you want to continue your journey of lifelong learning and keep exploring these incredible ideas with us, we invite you to subscribe to The Deep Dive, follow our YouTube channel, and make sure you sign up to the Deep Dive newsletter so we can keep unpacking fascinating source materials just like this one for you.
We'd love to have you aboard.
Because at the end of the day, when the digital noise of the world gets to be too much, there's always that moment waiting for you. That moment where you step off the dock, your feet leave solid ground, and you hear the crisp snap of the sail catching the breeze. Until next time, keep diving deep.